Lauren's the only reason this family holds together, Evan declared, her voice firm and pointed as she handed the mashed potatoes across the table. I looked up from my plate, swallowing the comeback that threatened to escape. Across from me, Lauren flashed her signature perfect smile, soaking in the praise as if she'd earned it by birth. "Mom, that's not true," David interrupted quietly, his words easing the tension only a little. "Oh, David," Evelyn scoffed, flicking her hand as if to brush his words away. "You don't see it because you'd rather not. Lauren's always the one smoothing things over, making sure we stay close. Natalie's fine, but well, she just isn't as involved." Her words hurt, but they didn't surprise me. This was the story I'd heard my entire marriage. Lauren as the glue, the peacemaker, the family's golden child, and me, the dutiful daughter. In-law, all was fine, yet never quite enough. My name is Natalie, and I've been married to David for 8 years. The moment I entered his family, I sensed I was stepping into a dynamic where I'd forever be second best. Evelyn, my mother-in-law, loved her daughter Lauren with a devotion that bordered on denial. Lauren could do no wrong, and me, I was merely tolerated. It wasn't for lack of trying. I cooked, hosted gatherings, stepped up during crises, but Evelyn's praise always circled back to Lauren. If I cleaned up after a chaotic dinner, Evelyn would thank Lauren for organizing it. If I fixed a last-minute problem, she'd credit it to Lauren's influence, keeping everything in line. Initially, I tried to win her approval. I believed if I worked hard enough, she'd notice my worth. But as years passed, I realized Evelyn's bias wasn't about me. It was about her need to idolize Lauren. Dinner dragged on, Evelyn's remarks landing harder as the evening wore on. "Natalie's always so quiet," she said with a smile for Lauren. "You're the one who brings this family to life." I forced a polite smile, my hands tightening beneath the table. David sent me an apologetic glance, but as usual, he said little about his mother's favoritism. By dessert, I'd retreated inside my own mind. I reminded myself I didn't need Evelyn's validation. I had learned to rely on my own strength, not her words. Still, as I cleared the plates and watched Lauren laugh with Evelyn, I couldn't help but wonder how long it would take for the truth to surface for Evelyn to realize who was really keeping this family together. Later that night, as David and I drove home in silence, the air was thick with things unsaid. He kept glancing over, probably trying to figure out my mood, but I offered little. Finally, he broke the silence. "I'm sorry about my mom," he said, voice low. I let out a small laugh, shaking my head. Why apologize for something she does every time? He gripped the wheel tighter. "I guess I feel like I should say something, but I never know how to make it better." "It's not your fault," I said, though the words felt empty. "Your mom's always made it clear who she thinks keeps this family together, and it isn't me. Nothing you say is going to change that." He frowned but didn't argue. That was David. He hated conflict, especially with his mom. When we got home, I headed straight to the kitchen, putting away the leftovers from the dinner I'd made earlier. Cooking had always been my way to unwind, a small act of control in a world that felt unpredictable. David watched me from the doorway. She doesn't mean it, right? She just gets swept up in her image of Lauren. I turned to him, frustration rising. It's not just about Lauren, David. It's about the fact that no matter what I do, your mom refuses to see it. I work hard for this family. I cook, I clean, I look after everyone, and she acts like it doesn't matter. David ran a hand through his hair. I know, Natalie. I see it, and I appreciate everything you do. Then why not say something to her? I asked, sharper than I meant. He hesitated, then shrugged. Because I don't think she'd listen, and honestly, I don't want to start a fight that goes nowhere. I turned back to the counter. It's fine, I said, though it wasn't. I don't need her approval. I'll just keep doing what I do, and eventually the truth will show itself. As I cleaned the kitchen that night, I thought about Evelyn's words and Lauren's smug smile. They had no idea what I did to keep this family afloat financially, emotionally, in every way that mattered. But I wouldn't waste my energy trying to prove it. Sooner or later, life would reveal the truth. And when it did, I'd be ready. A few weeks later, the cracks in the family's fuck-a-day started to show. At first, it was subtle. Evelyn complaining about tighter finances, Lauren grumbling over a canceled spa trip. I assumed it was just regular ups and downs, but soon it was obvious something more serious was happening. One evening, David came home looking more stressed than I'd seen in years. He dropped his bag and sat heavily at the table. What's wrong? I asked, sitting across from him. My mom called today, he said, rubbing his temples. She asked if we could lend her some money. Apparently, Lauren borrowed a large sum from her, and now she's struggling to pay the bills. I blinked in surprise. Lauren borrowed money? For what? He sighed. Supposedly to help a friend start a business. It didn't work out, and now my mom's stuck with the fallout. This revelation didn't shock me. Lauren had always been impulsive, jumping into ventures and expecting someone else to pick up the pieces, usually Evelyn, who never hesitated to help her. What did you say? I asked. I told her we'd think about it, but Natalie, we can't just hand over that kind of money. Things are tight for us too. I nodded, mentally running through our budget with the mortgage, groceries, and our small savings. We didn't have much to spare. Over the next few days, Evelyn's requests grew more frequent and urgent. She called David almost daily, her tone increasingly desperate. David, you know how much I've done for this family. If you and Natalie could help out, just this once, it'd mean so much. David told me about the calls, torn between wanting to help and knowing we couldn't afford it. What do you think we should do? He asked one night as we lay in bed. I stared at the ceiling, feeling the weight press down. We can't give her money, David. Not when we're barely getting by ourselves. But maybe there's another way. What do you mean? He asked. I mean, we step in and handle things. If Evelyn's too proud to admit she's overwhelmed and Lauren isn't stepping up, maybe it's time someone else did. He frowned, but didn't argue. If anyone can figure it out, it's you. That night, I began making a plan. Evelyn's blind devotion to Lauren had led her here, but I wouldn't let her spiral further, not for her sake, but for the family's. It was time to act, even if it meant staying behind the scenes. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table with a notebook and calculator, poring over our finances. If I was going to help, I needed to know where we stood. David watched me, coffee in hand. Are you sure about this? He asked, seeing me sift through bank statements. I'm not giving your mom cash, I said, but if we can restructure her bills or cut her expenses, it might help. She's in this because she won't admit she's struggling, and Lauren won't do anything. David leaned back. I hate that you have to do this. She shouldn't have to rely on you. She doesn't have to, I replied, but someone needs to fix this before it gets worse. I started by contacting a financial consultant I knew from work. Over the next few days, I collected information on Evelyn's debts, monthly cost, and the loans she took out for Lauren's failed ventures. The situation looked grim. Maxed out credit cards, overdue bills, and a looming mortgage payment. Evelyn had no idea I was involved. I didn't mention the hours I spent negotiating lower interest rates or finding payment plans that wouldn't bury her deeper. David offered to talk to her, but I said no. She won't take it seriously from you, and she rejects my help out of pride if she finds out. He didn't protest, but guilt lingered in his eyes. Meanwhile, Lauren was nowhere to be found. Evelyn continued to praise her at family gatherings. Lauren's so stressed these days, doing so much for everyone. I bit my tongue, knowing full well Lauren wasn't helping at all. It was exhausting juggling our own home, managing Evelyn's finances, and keeping up appearances at family dinners. But I refused to let it show. Neither Evelyn nor Laura needed to know how much I was doing. One night, after a long day, David turned to me on the couch. "You're incredible. You know that?" I smiled weakly, too tired to argue. "Let's hope it works." "It will," he said, squeezing my hand. "You're the one holding everything together, even if no one else sees it." 2 weeks later, my efforts finally showed results. Evelyn's overdue bills were now manageable, mortgage payments had been adjusted, and her interest rates dropped. The changes weren't dramatic, but enough to keep her afloat. Still, Evelyn's praise for Lauren was unwavering. "Lauren's been such a rock for me," she said over dinner. "She always knows just what to say." I forced a tight smile. "That's great, Evelyn. I'm glad she's been there for you." David gave me a sympathetic look, but stayed silent. It wasn't worth a fight. The final straw came when I overheard a phone call at Evelyn's house. I'd stopped by to drop off some paperwork for her, new payment plans. And as I walked up the drive, I heard her through an open window. "Don't worry, Lauren. I'll figure it out. You've already done so much for this family." I froze. My stomach twisted. Lauren hadn't lifted a finger to fix the mess I'd been cleaning up for weeks. When I knocked, Evelyn greeted me with her usual polite smile. "Natalie, what a surprise." I handed her the folder. "These are the finalized payment schedules. Everything should be in order." She barely looked at them. "Thank you, but you didn't have to go to so much trouble." "It wasn't any trouble," I managed, though her indifference stung. Driving home, my frustration boiled over. Weeks spent fixing Evelyn's finances, sacrificing my time and energy while she continued praising Lauren. David found me in the kitchen, scrubbing a pan. "What happened?" he asked, concern in his voice. "She doesn't even care," I said, voice trembling. "I've done everything, and all she talks about is Lauren." He sighed, wrapping his arms around me. "She'll see the truth eventually. People like Evelyn can't ignore reality forever." "She'd better," I said quietly, "because I'm done letting her take me for granted." After that, I decided not to argue with Evelyn or try to prove myself. I'd just finish what I started. The truth would come out on its own, and when it did, there'd be no denying my role. In the weeks that followed, I kept managing Evelyn's finances, streamlining her payments, negotiating with creditors. Each improvement made her situation stronger, though I stayed in the background. Meanwhile, Lauren's absence was more obvious than ever. She skipped family dinners, claiming she was too busy. But Evelyn continued painting her as a savior. One afternoon, the financial consultant called. Natalie, I've finished reviewing Evelyn's account. She's in a much better position, but there's something you should know. What is it? I asked, heart pounding. Her daughter, Lauren, has been funneling money from Evelyn's account for her own expenses. It's been happening for months. I felt the air leave my lungs. Are you sure? Positive. The transfers are small, but they add up. Evelyn might not realize it's happening. I thanked him and hung up, my thoughts racing. Lauren wasn't just neglecting her responsibilities, she was sabotaging Evelyn's finances that evening. I told David what I'd learned. His expression darkened as I explained. This is too much, he said. You've done everything to help, and Lauren's just been taking advantage. I know, I said, voice steady. But this isn't about Lauren anymore. Evelyn needs to know who's really been there for her. What are you going to do? I met his eyes, determination rising. I'll make sure she finds out the truth. The next day, I scheduled a family meeting. Evelyn was hesitant. Lauren, predictably, was late. When we were all together in Evelyn's living room, I handed her a folder with the financial records. What's this? She asked, flipping through the pages. It's the truth, I replied, calm but firm. Everything I've done to help and everything Lauren's been doing behind your back. Evelyn's eyes widened as she read, her hands shaken. Lauren immediately tried to dismiss it. Mom, you can't believe this. Natalie's just trying to make me look bad. But the evidence was clear, and for the first time, Evelyn couldn't ignore it. Silence filled the room as she read, her face going pale. Lauren shifted in her seat, her confidence slipping. This can't be right, Evelyn stammered, but she sounded unconvinced. It is, I said. For months, Lauren's been siphoning money from your accounts while you've struggled. I've been the one negotiating with creditors and keeping you from losing your home. Lauren jumped to her feet, her voice shrill. This is ridiculous. Natalie's just jealous of how close we are. I met her glare with quiet resolve. This isn't about jealousy. It's about the truth. You've taken advantage of your mother, and I've been cleaning up your mess. Evelyn looked between us, disbelief giving way to realization. Lauren, she said, voice trembling, is this true? Lauren faltered, her bravado gone. I didn't mean for it to get out of hand. I was going to pay it back with what? I pressed. Another failed scheme. For the first time, Evelyn didn't defend her daughter. She slumped back, the weight of her favoritism crashing down. How could you do this, Lauren? She whispered. I trusted you. I thought you were helping me. Lauren said nothing, just grabbed her purse and stormed out, slamming the door. Tension hung in the room. Evelyn looked at me, tears in her eyes. Natalie, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, I replied, soft but resolute. I didn't do this for thanks. I did it because it was right. But you must understand your blind trust in Lauren nearly cost you everything." She nodded, tears falling. "I was so wrong about you. I spent so long praising Lauren, I never saw what was right in front of me. You've been holding this family together." Hearing her say, it felt like a weight lifting. For years, I'd carried the burden of her dismissal, trying to prove myself through action instead of words. Now, she saw me for who I truly was. David reached for my hand, pride in his eyes. "You've done more for this family than anyone," he said. "And now they all know." I managed a faint smile, my heart lighter than it had been in years. The truth was out, and for the first time, I felt seen. That the days after the confrontation were a whirlwind. Evelyn called often, her tone softer and more thoughtful than ever before. At first, I didn't know how to respond. Part of me wanted to keep my distance, but another part that still cared wanted to believe she could change. One evening, Evelyn asked to meet for coffee. "I need to talk," she said. "I need to explain." David encouraged me to go. "She's trying, Natalie." I've never heard her admit she was wrong before. Reluctantly, I agreed. At the cafe, Evelyn was already there, nervously stirring her tea. She looked older the past few weeks, clearly taking a toll. "Thank you for coming," she said as I sat down. I nodded, waiting. She took a shaky breath. "I don't know how to make this right," she began, "but I need you to know how sorry I am. I spent so many years putting Lauren on a pedestal, ignoring everyone else, especially you. I thought I was protecting the family, but all I did was push you away." Her words were raw, unpolished, and honest. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she continued, voice breaking, "but I want you to know that I see you now, Natalie. Everything you've done for this family, it's more than I ever gave you credit for. I don't deserve your kindness, but I'm grateful for it." I sat quietly, taking it in. "Evelyn," I said at last, "I didn't step in for gratitude. I did it because I care about this family, Evan, when it hasn't felt like I belonged." "But hearing you say this means more than you know." She nodded, wiping away tears. "I don't want to be the person I was," she said. "I want to do better for you, for David, for everyone." It wasn't a perfect apology, but it felt real. For the first time, I felt we were on the same side, not as adversaries, but as two people who cared about the family. Over the next weeks, Evelyn made small but meaningful changes. She took a more active role in her finances, attended workshops I suggested, and asked for my input at family gatherings. Lauren, meanwhile, kept her distance. The aftermath of our confrontation had shaken her, and though I didn't expect an apology, her absence allowed the rest of us to start healing. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like just a guest in my own family. I felt like I belonged. Gradually, the family felt less fractured. Evelyn's efforts weren't perfect, but they were genuine. She checked in regularly, sought my advice, and began showing gratitude for the things I did, something I'd never thought possible. One afternoon, as we reviewed her financial plans, Evelyn looked up from the papers. "I don't think I ever thanked you properly. Natalie, you didn't have to do any of this, but you did, and it saved me." I paused, surprised by how much it meant. "You don't have to thank me, Evelyn. I just wanted to make sure the family didn't fall apart." She shook her head. "It's more than that. You've been the foundation of this family, and I was too blind to see it. That's on me, but I see it now, and I'll never take it for granted again. Her words settled something deep inside me. For years, I'd carried her dismissal, wondering if I'd ever be enough. Now, I was seen not just for what I did, but for who I was. Lauren's absence made space for healthier family dynamics. Without her constant need for attention and Evelyn's unwavering support, conversations became more balanced. David noticed, too. It's nice to come over and not feel like we're on eggshells, he said as we drove home from dinner. It is, I agreed. But it was more than Lauren's absence was Evelyn's effort to repair our relationship that brought us peace. I hadn't realized we were missing at work. I felt reinvigorated. The challenges with Evelyn had taught me more about patience, resilience, and staying true to my values than I expected. Those lessons spilled over into my career, giving me new purpose. One day, as I was wrapping up a meeting, Evelyn called. I'm thinking about hosting a family dinner, she said, hope in her voice. It's been a while, and I'd like to make it special. Would you help me plan it? Her request was simple, but it meant everything. Of course, I replied, smiling. I'd love to. As I hung up, I felt a warmth I hadn't associated with Evelyn in years. She wasn't perfect, and our relationship wasn't magically fixed, but we were moving forward. For the first time, I had a place at the table, not because I demanded it, but because I'd earned it. The dinner Evelyn planned was different from any we'd had before. There was a lightness, a warmth that hadn't existed in years. The table was set with care, the food thoughtfully prepared, conversation flowing easy. There was no tension, no subtle digs, no favoritism. Midway through, Evelyn raised her glass. I want to say something, she began, her voice steady but emotional. The room quieted. For years, I saw this family through a lens that wasn't always fair. Her gaze found mine. Natalie, I owe you an apology. I didn't see all you've done for us for me, but I do now. You're the reason this family is still standing, and I'll never forget that. A lump formed in my throat, but I managed a small smile. Thank you, Evelyn, I said softly. That means a lot? David squeezed my hand beneath the table, pride shining in his eyes. After dinner, as guests left, Evelyn pulled me aside in the kitchen. I've been thinking about what you said about Lauren, about me. I let her take advantage because it was easier than admitting I'd made mistakes. But I won't let that happen again. Hearing her acknowledge the pattern was more than I'd hoped. It's not easy to break old habits, I said gently, but you're trying in. That's what matters. She smiled faintly. You've taught me more than I can say. Natalie, I don't know how to repay you. You don't have to, I replied. Just keep moving forward. That's all I need. That night, driving home with David, I felt a peace I hadn't known in years. The journey with Evelyn had been hard, and there was still work to do, but we were in a better place of mutual respect and understanding. For so long, I'd chased Evelyn's validation, believing my worth depended on her approval. But now, I realized I didn't need her to see me to know my own value. Her recognition was a bonus, not the foundation. As I lay in bed, reflecting on everything we'd been through, I understood I wasn't just the daughter-in-law anymore. I was a vital part of this family, not because of what I'd done, but because of who I was. And finally, that was enough.